North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. We report the news honestly, fairly. We make analysis of that news. And what happens? Well, we look for fact and bias. We point out both. There is commentary. That's just my opinion. It's not the news. Unlike a lot of people who do this job, they happen to believe that their opinion is news. I disagree vehemently. We also, since I allow my opinion, yours is just as allowed as mine, just as valuable as mine. And therefore, we debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. Thank you for joining us today. If you listen carefully in the background, you will note that there are still votes being taken for Speaker of the House of Representatives. 3 votes were taken yesterday, 2 votes were taken today, and we still stand at a stalemate. The latest vote, number 5, had Kevin McCarthy with 201 votes. That's 1 vote less than yesterday. Hakeem Jeffries has 212 votes. There is also another person in the running, and that would be Brian Donalds of Florida. He's been nominated twice today. Very likely he will be nominated again. We are waiting for the official results of vote number 5, and that has not happened yet. We haven't gotten the official results. And from what we understand, the Republican Party is not going to move for an adjournment. What they're going to do is they are going to move for a 6th vote. You can see that there are a lot of people when you look at the actual live feed that we're using from C-SPAN. We want to thank them very much. You can see that there are an awful lot of people looking at their phones, making all manner of texts, et cetera, as they try to figure out and sort of weed out just exactly what the opinions are and what has to happen and what has not happened. There was a startling statement today. Representative Boebert of Colorado plainly said on the House floor just before the 5th vote that Kevin McCarthy does not have the votes. Murmurs that elicited murmurs throughout the room. Also, there was a little bit of silence after that as people thought about the implications. Is Kevin McCarthy going to lose this job? We will find out. We will find out, and we are covering this story as we should. It's historic. Last time this happened was 1923. And so what we have is a stalemate because the Freedom Caucus has decided that they are going to stand their ground and they are going to turn aside Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House of Representatives based on many of the things that they say makes him both unelectable in their view as Speaker of the House and also untrustworthy. There has been a little bit of erosion of momentum. As I said, Kevin McCarthy had 201 votes. That was down 1 vote. One representative from Nevada voted present. There are also other murmurs going around that one of the representatives decided that he was going to vote 5 times for Kevin McCarthy. After that, his vote was open. So there's a little loss of momentum for Kevin McCarthy. We will see. By the way, the House Freedom Caucus nominated Representative Byron Donalds of Florida for House Speaker during the votes today. 2 sources told Fox News Digital ahead of the Wednesday vote that Donalds would be the candidate the House Freedom Caucus would back instead of GOP leader Kevin McCarthy of California. McCarthy fell short of securing the votes he needed in the first vote and the second vote. 20 Republicans, including Donalds, voted for Representative Jim Jordan of Ohio over the caucus leader yesterday. Representative Chip Roy of Texas, he's a Republican, of course, nominated Donalds on the House floor today, the first vote today, which was vote number 4, saying that the Republican will stand up to the swamp in Washington. Quote, "We do not seek to judge people by the color of their skin, but rather the content of their character. Byron Donalds is a good man, raised by a single mom, moved past diversity, became a Christian man at the age of 21, and has devoted his life to advancing the cause for his family and this country. And he has done so admirably. He is well respected in the chamber and indeed is someone who could be considered a very serious candidate and a very serious possibility to be the Speaker of the House, especially since he has garnered 20 votes so far in 2 separate votes. And other momentum, as I mentioned, the momentum was beginning to wane a little bit for Kevin McCarthy. Will people switch their votes away from the presumptive Speaker of the House? Apparently, that is possible. We're going to see on this 6th vote. There's an important reason for nominating Byron, said Chip Roy of Texas. This country needs a change. This country needs leadership that does not reflect this city, this town, meaning Washington, D.C., and said that it was badly broken. Roy went on to say the House of Representatives is the people's house and represents the entirety of our country, and called for debate in the chamber on U.S. financial support of Ukraine. McCarthy did not get enough votes to secure the speakership on his 4th vote for office, with the Freedom Caucus moving from supporting Jordan to Representative Daniels. The GOP leader can only afford to lose 4 votes in his quest to become Speaker, and we are watching this like a hawk, as you can imagine. A few things here. Once again, Fox News is showing its absolute disdain for the Freedom Caucus and what these people are trying to do. Sean Hannity said last night that the American people would probably tolerate this maybe a few days, but that would be just about all. And that Fox News is plainly in the McCarthy camp does show a bias that needs to be pointed out, and we have no hesitation in doing so. You can join us with your comments. It would be welcomed, in fact. Please join us at 817-379-2172, 817-379-2172, or you can join us on the chat room. Many people have so far. I want to say hi to Yvonne and Jesse and Beth Ann and Gary and Ann Hoy Guzman, who says this: Donalds went on Fox News this morning, so they replaced Jordan with him. This is one dog and pony show. No kidding. Can't even send these knotheads holding up America an email if you're not in their area. I did reach out to a couple of congressmen. I was equally unsuccessful. We're shooting, by the way, we did have an over and under. We had an over and under. And the over-under on votes for Kevin McCarthy to be the Speaker of the House of Representatives was set by me at 7. I didn't think we were going to get there. But then again, what you need to keep in mind is you have to keep in mind that that I thought that Kevin McCarthy was eventually going to be Speaker, because I was really pretty sure that there would be deals struck in the Republican conference meetings. Yesterday, there was one that was profane. When there was a motion to adjourn yesterday, I expected the Republican conference to get together, solve their differences, and move forward. But that does not seem to be the case. So today, 2 votes have already been taken. A 3rd one is in the offing. We are waiting for the official results of vote number 5. The Republicans have reportedly been insistent on a 6th vote. We don't know how many votes they're going to take today. This is a protracted process. It's one of the rare instances where the House of Representatives takes a roll call vote. All 434 members. If I remember my math correctly, 434 members have to be talked about. One representative passed away before he could come to office. And so here we are, waiting to see who the next Speaker of the House of Representatives is going to be. The business of the House is on hold until this particular topic is taken care of. And that's what we have. There are a lot of people who really are not enamored or extremely upset with the Freedom Caucus and those 20 members, some 21 actually, because one voted present, that have stood down from Kevin McCarthy. They are indeed holding up the show. But the question is this: what are they actually holding up? Kevin McCarthy is a decidedly serious member of what has been called the Washington, D.C. cartel. In other words, he's a part of the system. And as a matter of fact, when I say that he's a part of the system, I'm not kidding around. One of the things that has been pointed out is that Kevin McCarthy, being a part of the system, being a part of the power brokers in Washington, D.C., that the Freedom Caucus just does not believe that he will stand up for conservative principles. And he, meaning Kevin McCarthy, didn't help himself out much by something that he did today. This being reported from the Hill, House GOP Speaker nominee Kevin McCarthy expressed optimism about winning the gavel last night as he emerged from meetings with allied members following 3 failed ballots, floating the possibility of winning the post with fewer than 218 votes. You're sitting at 202 votes. Well, now it's 201. You will technically need just 11 more votes to win. Democrats have 212 votes. You get 213, and the others don't say another name, and that's how you can win. It's being reported by The Hill and elsewhere that indeed Kevin McCarthy is negotiating with Democrats to bring about some kind of a bipartisan deal to make him speaker. So the Freedom Caucus, believing that Kevin McCarthy is not someone who would do anything different than what Republicans have been doing for quite a while, which is negotiate on Democrat policies instead of moving forward with conservative ones, got some more ammunition based on this conduct by Kevin McCarthy. That was not a good move. I'm surprised he made it. Also, there were statements yesterday where he said that he deserved this job. That was hard for me to take, insofar as the House of Representatives is not something that anyone can lay claim to from a standpoint of ownership or earning, for that matter. It's the people's house. These are representatives. Yes, Kevin McCarthy has done stellar work for the Republican Party. He has raised countless millions of dollars. He has flown across the country. He has spoken on television. He has worked as much as he possibly could for this job. Arguably, there is some weight behind his statement that yes, indeed, he deserves this job. But you don't say that out loud. You say that during conference meetings, hopefully that no one is recording, and you make that plain to your fellow Republicans. That is, unfortunately, not what Kevin McCarthy has done. What he has done is he has said that I deserve this job, and is indeed, unfortunately, negotiating with Democrats to bring that about. Will that be successful? We don't know. We may find out on this 6th vote. All it would take would be some 10 Democrats or fewer to simply vote present instead of Hakeem or for Hakeem Jeffries. I don't expect them to do that because Hakeem Jeffries, in all of these votes, 5 so far, has been the leading vote getter. Is it possible that the House of Representatives, run by the Republican Party, could indeed elect Democrat Hakeem Jeffries as the Speaker of the House? That was brought up yesterday. I want to clarify what I said yesterday. I said that's not going to happen based on the fact that the Republicans have the majority. I want to clarify just a little bit more about that. I was thinking about what I said, and I think that there may be a little bit of work. We'll do that next. This is the Wells Report. Back with more in just a moment. And after that very short break, what has happened is that the clerk of the House of Representatives has moved to bring the House to order, and let's join her coverage and what she has to say.
The tellers agree in their tallies that the total number of votes cast is 433. of which the Honorable Hakeem Jeffries of the state of New York has received 212. The Honorable Kevin McCarthy of the state of California has received 201. The Honorable Byron Donalds of the state of Florida has received 20. With one recorded as present. No member-elect having received a majority of the votes cast, a speaker has not been elected. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Florida rise?
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I rise today to nominate Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the People's House.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
My colleagues, well, it's Groundhog Day. Again, and if it's all right with you, I would like to. Thank you, Madam Clerk. If it's all right with you all, I would like to address not you, but the American people. Because, quite frankly, they are. Well, we don't have a speaker yet. So, the American people, well, they are our boss, and we work for them. Yesterday, as we were here on the House floor, our constituents from all around the country made their voices heard. Today, the calls, the text messages, emails, they all continue. People are letting their voice be heard, and that is a very, very good thing.
This is Representative Kat Cammack of Florida, the 3rd District.
Because that is what we are, after all, a constitutional republic that serves all Americans, not just a select few. To all Americans watching right now, I want to tell you that we hear you. We hear you. And we will get this right. No matter how messy this process is, we will emerge better for having been through this, because nothing great ever comes easy. For the last several months, negotiations have gone back and forth over a rules package to make this chamber, your chamber, a better place to deliver better results for you, the American people. And I want to remind everyone watching, listening here in this chamber, this body, our country, we are bigger than a single person or a single moment in time. We are a nation collectively of great people, great patriots, and great moments of courage. The rules package that has been highlighted by so many of my colleagues dictates how this chamber functions, how bills come to the floor, how much time we get to read these bills, whether or not we will get single issue bills, and whether or not we can vote proxy. And as you have witnessed from events yesterday, so many people have said, what are the next steps? What will we accomplish if we continue down this current path? Will we wake up tomorrow and be in this exact same place? People calling my office said over and over and over again, it is time to get to work. Anything less is unacceptable. And you know, as we stood on this House floor yesterday, and again today, over 200 people were poisoned from fentanyl. Fentanyl that came from an open border because of the Biden open border policy. Over 5,000 people were encountered at the border because of Biden's open border policies. These are the issues that people care about. They don't sit around their kitchen tables at night saying, I wonder who's going to be speaker. No, they elect people to come here to do the things that matter, the issues that impact them every single day. And in an era of uncertainty, the last thing they need is uncertainty within this chamber. We were elected to be the voice of our constituents. We are their voice in this chamber. And they didn't send us to be perpetual critics. They sent us to get things done. And as we all know, because after all, we are in politics, the line of critics is always long. But the list of those that are actually rolling up their sleeves and doing the difficult job of leading, of uniting, of delivering results, especially in a chamber like this, well, that list is very short. Kevin McCarthy has proved that he can get things done. He has proven that he is willing to stand up in the face of critics and not only prove them wrong, but work with them. The only thing sovereign in this republic are its people, and they have deemed it right to place a check on the Biden administration and put our party, the Republican Party, in control of this chamber. Now is the time that we take control. I understand a lack of trust among some of our colleagues. I do.
Will the House be in order?
I understand a lack of trust among some of our colleagues. But what I am asking is that we all trust the American people who sent our colleagues here. This House is the only part of the federal government that stands for election every 2 years. Therefore, this chamber is an instrument of the people's will, and the people have overwhelmingly voted for Kevin McCarthy. If we continue down this road, if we continue with the actions of yesterday and today, we stifle the will of the American people. The changes to the rules of this place and how it functions have been overwhelmingly positive in the last few weeks. Legislation stands ready. It is time to unite, roll up our sleeves, and get to work doing the people's business. The gentleman, my friend, Kevin McCarthy from California, has done more than anyone in this chamber to secure a Republican majority. Many of the people who are members here today are, quite frankly, here because of his leadership, because they have trusted him, and he has gone out of his way to make sure that every single one of us has had a voice at the table. Furthermore, every single returning Republican in this chamber who cast a vote 2 years ago in the last Congress voted for Kevin McCarthy as our leader. We were united then, and we must unify now. That's the only way to start the people's business, the very reason that we're all here. It's to unify and get to work. Because we must commit to unity instead of division, because we owe it to the American people who sent us here. We must choose to lead in the face of a liberal Senate and Obama's JV team in the White House. We owe it to the American people. The American people sent a conservative majority to govern this body, but we cannot even begin to govern because, heck, we can't even swear in as members of Congress. I've traveled the country for the last 2 years as the youngest Republican woman in the 117th Congress, helping to secure a majority of members who are on both sides of today's Republican vote. Diversity of thought is a good thing. It's one of the things that sets us apart from our friends on the other side of the aisle. Yes, diversity of thought is a good thing. They want us divided. They want us to fight each other. That much has been made clear by the popcorn and blankets and alcohol that is coming over there. The House is not in order. The House is not in order.
Democrats bristling at the illusion that alcohol is involved and popcorn, etc.
The clerk would ask all members-elect to abide by the established decorum of the House while making nominations. Gentlewoman is recognized.
As evidenced by my colleagues' actions, so today I am asking my friends and colleagues, are we the party of Reagan Republicans? Reagan, who said, someone who is with me 80% of the time is a loyal and good friend, not a 20% traitor. Are we the party of Reagan? That is the question that I ask you to answer as we embark on this next ballot. It's upon us to remain a nation of equal opportunity, not equal outcome. That is what is on the line here today, and that is why I am nominating Kevin McCarthy, and I humbly ask for your support. Madam Clerk, I yield back.
Kat Kemick of Florida, making a bristling speech. One reacted to rather boisterously by the Democrats.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California rise?
Madam Clerk, I rise to nominate Hakeem Jeffries as Speaker of the House, the lead vote getter in the last 5 rounds.
The gentleman is recognized.
Madam Clerk, Democrats are united behind a speaker who will build safer communities. He's a leader in gun violence prevention. He has worked to make our criminal justice system more fair, more equitable, and more effective, and he's done it working with both sides of the aisle. A leader who has a track record in actually getting things done. And he understands that public safety, public health, and economic opportunity must go hand in hand. That's why, at the direction of the Democratic caucus, I advance the name of Hakeem Jeffries from Brooklyn, New York, as our next speaker for the 118th Congress.
Now, many people have wondered whether Hakeem Jeffries could be elected. It would require defections from the Republican Party to make that happen. It would require 11, and that is not likely.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania rise?
Madam Speaker, to nominate the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Donalds.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, no matter what your political persuasion, one thing is universally recognized across this country. Washington is broken. Washington is completely broken. Whether it's a wide open border, millions of people streaming across, terrorists, criminals, fentanyl coming right to your community, not at the border, but into your community. Overdoses happening in your towns, funerals happening in your town because the border's open, because this place is broken. 12 days ago, in the middle of the night, 4,000 pages showed up over here, 6.5 or 1.7 trillion dollars in spending, 7,200 earmarks, 24 hours time to read it, like a Christmas tree right before Christmas, that nobody outside of this town wanted. If you've been here for 1 year, you voted on that once. If you've been here for 3 years, you voted on the same thing 3 times. If you've been here for 10 years, you voted on it 10 times. Washington is broken. We got crime running across the streets, no matter what community you're in, because now this town has decided that somehow the criminals aren't understood, and we've abandoned the victims. This is what people in our country are dealing with. We are funding wars in other countries while we're destroying our own military because this town is broken. We have an administration that has contempt for the American people and is using these big corporations to spy on Americans and using the instruments of federal power to persecute and prosecute them because this town is broken. And this place is literally broken. There hasn't been an amendment on the floor for 6 years in this town. So if you're not on the committee of jurisdiction, but it affects your citizens, well, too bad for you. You just vote yes or you just vote no. That's not how this place was designed to be.
Representative Scott
vote
Perry
on
is the
bills
chair of the
that have
Freedom
all kinds of
Caucus.
things that have nothing to do with the bill itself. Everybody came here because they said to their constituents, this town is broken and I want to fix it. Well, how are you going to fix it if you come to this town and just step right in line and keep doing the same things that everybody has done before you? It's not going to fix it, and the American people know it. And I would say this: I think the person that has done the most to make this fabulous, this wonderful Republican majority is Speaker Pelosi and her policies. That's what has achieved this majority over here, because the American people are sick and tired of it, and they've had enough of it. Now, this is not about personalities. It's not about personalities. It's about the policies that come out of here. This is not about personalities on this side of the aisle or that side of the aisle. We believe, and we want to believe, and we want to believe that every person that comes here, left, right, center, has the best intentions for our country. The best intentions for our country. And it's not about the personalities in this contest. It is not personal for us. But because we all acknowledge and we all know that Washington is broken, we must take a new path. There must be a new vision so that Congress works for the American people. Because the American people are watching what's happening here, and they've watched what's happened here, and they're sure in their hearts, and they can prove it, that this town works for this town. That's who this town is working for. Ladies and gentlemen, we are making history today. We are making history in this process. And we are showing the American people that this process works. Yeah, it's been about 100 years. It's been about 100 years since this has happened before. But we have said, we're not going to take any more of Washington being broken. We're going to do something for the American people, and we're going to fix it. And is it going to be painful? And is it going to be difficult? Yeah, it probably is. That's why it took 100 years. It probably is. But we're going to do it. And we can also make history today by making the first...
Will the House be in order?
By electing the first Black Republican Speaker of the House. Yes, thank you. Now, as my colleagues probably know, the first Black members of Congress to serve in this body were Republicans. As a matter of fact, you probably also know that Frederick Douglass, who went and worked with Abraham Lincoln to emancipate the people of color in this country, said he would never be anything but a Republican, I am here to nominate Byron Donalds because he has accomplished many things. He is a man of faith. He is a family man. He is a businessman, and he is a man of community service. He's come from the school of hard knocks, because not all outcomes in life are equal, but America is the place where we can each do great things regardless of our humble beginnings, each one of us. Now, Byron is a product of single family where it's not easy, but he has succeeded in America, and that's a testament to what we have created here and what we're trying to save. He's got a record of accomplishing things. He has a record of being on the right side. He is respected, he is trusted, he is capable, and he achieves results. Now, Byron has a big mind, and he's big in stature as well. He's very nice, but I will tell you this, in a negotiation with Chuck Schumer, I sure will want to be on the other side of Byron Donalds. He knows who he is, he knows what his foundation is, and he knows that Washington is broken, and what Chuck Schumer sends over here isn't going to work out for the American people. Ladies and gentlemen, Washington is broken. Byron Donalds will inspire us and restore our citizens' faith that this institution actually works for them. and it is my highest honor to nominate the gentleman from Florida, Byron Donalds, to be the next Speaker of the House, and I yield.
I have noticed that as these votes have continued, the speeches to nominate the various candidates have gotten longer and longer and
The
longer.
reading clerk will call the roll.
And this is vote number 6. This will be the 6th vote to determine the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Now remember, Kevin McCarthy can only lose 4 votes. He can only lose 4 votes. If someone is number 5, then this vote will fail as well.
Adams. Jeffries.
And the process continues.
Adams.
This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Thanks very much for joining us today as we cover history. It doesn't happen very often, but it's happening today. And we are most assuredly very much interested in just exactly how we will find our next Speaker of the House.
Jeffries.
This is something that, as I said, you don't get to see very often. It's been almost 100 years since it happened last time. Gary Abshire points out that my guess about the over-under being 7 looks pretty good right now. We will see as we continue to watch the votes to see just exactly who it will be that votes for Representative Donalds, and we'll see just exactly how that works out. I'm sorry, I thought somebody said yet another name, which is permissible. Just because you have a nomination doesn't necessarily mean that you can't vote for someone else. McCarthy now has 10 votes. Hakeem Jeffries has 5. And to clarify that statement that I was making before, that has to do with whether or not Hakeem Jeffries could indeed be the Speaker of the House. Here's the way it works. You need 218 votes. 218 votes is a majority of the House of Representatives. If a majority of the House of Representatives, sorry about that, if the majority of the House of Representatives does indeed vote for Hakeem Jeffries, he'd be the Speaker, whether he was a part of the party that had the majority or not. But there are 222 Republicans. There are 202 Democrats. And so there would have to be mighty defections from the Republican Party to be able to make that happen. So it will not. And even though these votes are being led by Hakeem Jeffries, last time the entire caucus, 212, as a matter of fact, every Democrat has voted for Hakeem Jeffries at every time, every chance. So even though he has 212 votes, that is not 218. And while Kevin McCarthy has a lower vote number based on the fact that there are some 21 representatives who, for whatever reason, will not vote for him, his vote total may be less, but that doesn't mean that Hakeem Jeffries is actually going to get the job. And so that's what I wanted to make clear. Beth Ann says, go Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan is an amazing human being. Yes. Nicole Boebert has voted for Representative Donalds. So there you go. Let's see. What else are you saying? Why is it important that Representative Donald be described as the first black Speaker of the House? Well, for the same reason that we declared that President Obama was the first black president of the United States. The leading edge is fraught with various things that are unfortunate. That in 1964, Martin Luther King would stand on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial and talk about how he didn't want to be judged by the color of his skin, but by the contents of his character. That was a long time ago. That was nearly 70 years ago, if my math is right, and that's always a bad thing to say. You know, it's nearly 80 years ago. No, I'll just freaking do it. I'm so sorry. My math is just so terrible. 223, 1964, and it's 9, and that's 50, almost 60 years ago. that we had the responsibility carefully laid out before us about how race should be handled in the United States, how we were able to get there in 1964 and yet still have not solved these problems today, so that we could say that Representative Brian Donalds is just a guy who is going to be the next speaker. That we haven't gotten there is a stinging indictment on another indictment of American politics, and it's awful. And I sincerely hope that it stops at some point. So let's get back to the coverage here. As you can see, there are 4 votes for Donalds. There are other people that will indeed vote for Donalds, and it looks like this will be another defeat for Representative Kevin McCarthy of California. So we can wait to see what's going on here.
Jeffries. Carter of Georgia. McCarthy. Carter of Louisiana. Jeffries. Carter of Texas. McCarthy. Cartwright. Jeffries. Nassar. Jeffries. Case. Jeffries. Caston. Jeffries. Pastor of Florida. Jeffries. Castro of Texas. Jeffries. Chavez DeRemer. McCarthy. Sherphyllis McCormick. Jeffries. Chu. Jeffries. Cicilline. Jeffries. Siscomani. McCarthy. Clark of Massachusetts. Jeffries. Clark of New York. Jeffries. Cleaver. Jeffries. Klein. McCarthy. Cloud. Donalds. Clyburn. Jeffries.
And
Klein.
as you can see, the vote for Donalds has come in. There are 5, and that means that there is no way forward, at least from a Republican Party standpoint, for Kevin McCarthy to win this vote. Now, what is the intrigue? Well,
Cole.
the intrigue looks like this.
McCarthy.
It is possible that some Democrats will vote present.
McCarthy.
And if they do that, the number gets smaller than 218.
Connolly.
And so we will see that if that happens on this vote. Please note that I have reported that Kevin McCarthy has indeed been negotiating with the Democrat Party for that exact reason. Was he successful? Was there a number of votes before something like that would take place? We don't know yet. We are watching the votes. We are watching this story. We will continue to do both as we continue on the Wells Report. Our telephone number, 817-379-2172. Chat rooms open, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Back with more in just a moment. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Vote totals look like this: 57 for Kevin McCarthy, 61 for Hakeem Jeffries, and Representative Brian Donalds, 8 votes. That will likely reach the 20 that he has received the first 2 times today. There was 1 not abstention, but 1 vote as present earlier today in the Republican caucus. Strangely enough, the scenarios that we were just talking about regarding Hakeem Jeffries being Speaker of the House of Representatives, well, there have been some conversations from people you wouldn't necessarily expect. One of them is Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who floated a possible coalition government in the House of Representatives this yesterday after Republicans failed to elect a new Speaker of the House. As you know, she is a far-left progressive, and she raised the possibility that Republican leader Representative Kevin McCarthy would have to negotiate with the Democrats, something that there have been reports that he has exactly done. I don't believe that McCarthy has the votes, said AOC. I believe a lot of the opposition to him is very personal. I believe his leadership style is incompatible with a lot of Republican members, and certainly the Democrat caucus. So the question is there anyone in the caucus that can build that consensus? If there isn't, McCarthy's team may have to come to the Democrat Party. If that's the case, then what would that even look like? It's unprecedented. Could it result in a potential coalition government? Now, I bring that up because arguably that is exactly what has happened. This bipartisanship that we keep hearing about, that we keep hearing both parties talk about how is so important, is that not a coalition government? And by the way, there's also something else that's going on regarding this, and that has to do with the fact that the Republican Party, as I have pointed out time and time again on this broadcast, does not fight for their policies. They negotiate with Democrats to make their policies become law. And so if that's not already a coalition government, just exactly what is it? By the way, in case you want to know, that $1.7 trillion spending bill, the omnibus that got passed, that was first dumped on the House 12 days ago while the Democrats were still in power, well, that was something that got passed through the House, went to the Senate, and Mitch McConnell allowed the vote to sustain that package, taking the opportunity of doing a continuing resolution off the table for House Republicans. Now, as far as I'm concerned, that's Mitch McConnell working to the benefit of Democrats. Were there many of these earmarks that were talked about earlier? Were those earmarks Republican? Yes, they were. But the simple case of the matter is that I'm not especially concerned about whether or not we have a coalition government, because arguably we already do. And I believe that the Freedom Caucus members are doing their dead level best to break that down. As I said yesterday, and I'll say it again today, this is less about who the Speaker of the House of Representatives is and more about what the future of the Republican Party is. There are people that are very dissatisfied with this rhinoism, Republican in name only, very dissatisfied by it. And they want to change. And these people, now remember, you've got to look at it this way. These people are essentially working for themselves, just as the chair of the Freedom Caucus was talking about. What happens in Washington is all about Washington. That's not the way it's supposed to be. What's supposed to happen is that these people should represent us, we the people. Then I can ask you a simple question. Do you believe that the American federal government works to the benefit of you and the rest of the American people? I don't believe so. I absolutely don't believe so. And Kevin McCarthy is a part of that. Kevin McCarthy being a part of that is what the Freedom Caucus is trying to break down. I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm not trying to make excuses for Kevin McCarthy or the Republican Party or the Democrat Party or even this process. All I'm trying to do is report on it. And I'm trying to do so fairly. so that what we can do is we can make decisions based on what we see here. Regardless of whether you agree with it or not, this historic event is working to the benefit of we, the people of the United States, through the Freedom Caucus demanding that things change in Washington, D.C. If Kevin McCarthy wants to be the Speaker of the House, he's going to have to go to the Freedom Caucus and he's going to have to agree. He's going to have to agree to go along with it. Somebody in the chat room brought up, well, these Freedom Caucus members are only working to feather their own nest. I don't believe so. I believe if they were working to feather their own nest, then a deal would have already been struck. That is my personal opinion. I'm not exactly sure that it's real, but I will tell you that that's what I believe is the case. If they were just out to make themselves bigger in the world of Washington politics, Kevin McCarthy would have made that deal. But he didn't. This is about something else. This is about the Republican Party refusing to believe that the people of the United States, through the election of Donald Trump, fired them, and the Democrats as well. Donald Trump hadn't been elected to anything until he was the president of the United States. And so the Republican Party is quite literally looking like they're putting their head in the sand. I wonder how long they'll do it. I will let you know one way or another on this broadcast. This is the Wells Report. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back with hour number 2 next. All right, then. And so there we go. I shall return. North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Okay, what's that? It's the news, the real news, reported honestly and fairly. It's analyzed by us. We analyze this news for fact and bias. We point out both. There is commentary. That's not the news. It's probably what makes me the queasiest of all the things I do, because I don't believe that opinion is news, not in any way, shape, or form. I believe the news is the news. What people think about it, certainly worthy of discussion, and that's why we debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. If you have been with us, then you know that they are currently trying to figure out just exactly who the next Speaker of the House of Representatives is going to be. Brian Donalds is a congressman from Florida. He is challenging, courtesy of nominations that have been put forward all day today, Kevin McCarthy of California. Kevin McCarthy, the presumptive choice for Speaker of the House, has gotten over 200 votes. It takes 218 to be the Speaker of the House. That is a majority among the House members, numbering 434. One representative passed away, sadly. And so there are 434 votes. That means the majority is 218, and there have been some 20 votes, actually 20 votes for the opposition to Kevin McCarthy. One vote is present, which is a non-vote. So that's where we stand today. Let's take a look at what's going on with the vote itself as it continues to unfold. Kevin McCarthy has 131 votes. Hakeem Jeffries, the Democrat leader, it has 126. Brian Donalds, as we just spoke of, he has 14 votes, and the vote is continuing. There have been an awful lot of reactions to what we are witnessing, and not all of them are, shall we say, kind, shall we say. One of those reactions comes from Donald J. Trump, the former president of the United States. So what we have now is we have New York Times reporting on that. Former President Donald Trump today made a direct appeal to House Republicans to support Representative Kevin McCarthy of California for Speaker. This after Mr. McCarthy lost 3 successive votes yesterday amid a hard right rebellion led by some of Mr. Trump's most loyal allies in Congress. Quote, some really good conversations took place last night, and now it's time for all of our great Republican House members to vote for Kevin. Close the deal. Take the victory, said Mr. Trump. He has, by the way, declared that he would be running for president in 2024. He wrote that on his Truth Social account. Yesterday, the California Republicans suffered defeat after humiliating defeat on the House floor. Remember, this is New York Times copy. So the word humiliating is there for political effect and thus is bias. Mr. Trump refused to reiterate his endorsement for Kevin McCarthy, telling NBC News' Garrett Hawk that we'll see what happens. Mr. Trump and Mr. McCarthy then spoke last night after the embarrassing once-in-a-century debacle on the House floor, and Mr. Trump made his tepid comment on NBC. Now, once again, this is not a debacle. This is politics. This is the way this works. This is the way it should work, I dare say. After the conversation, Mr. Trump arrived at a more full-throated statement, reiterating his backing for Mr. McCarthy, though he still tempered his praise. Quote, Republicans, do not turn a great triumph into a giant and embarrassing defeat. It's time to celebrate. You deserve it. Kevin McCarthy will do a good job and maybe even a great job. Just watch. Now, this is remarkable. This is remarkable that former President Donald Trump would say these things. His relationship with Kevin McCarthy, and indeed, it has been indeed, when you say the word tepid, that is exactly what it is. Remember, Donald Trump did not receive the congressional support required to turn back Democrats as they sought to remove him from office, disenfranchising the people who voted for him the first time around, and indeed did not receive the political protection that any other, shall we say, mainstream politician could expect from his political party. In many ways, as we look toward 2024, Donald Trump is not just fighting the Democrat Party, he's also fighting the Republican Party. Does this serve his interests to stand with the Republican establishment? I don't know. I don't know whether it helps him or whether it hurts him. Remember, these are people that he is in many ways responsible for being a part of the American Congress. He certainly endorsed many of them and has supported the rest of them. And so there we go. That's the way that's what we see at this particular moment. And so once again, the House Freedom Caucus standing strong. 17 votes now for Brian Donalds of Florida. So far, we have not had the present vote. Whether that is going to continue or not, we don't know. There's also another congressman who said that he was only going to vote for Kevin McCarthy 5 times. Will he vote another way this time? As that would certainly signal an erosion of support, even though a small erosion of support in the people that Kevin McCarthy has depended on up to now. Let's take a look at what some of the people are saying. Let's see. McCarthy will get elected before any Democrat. That's true. I was bringing up AOC last hour. She said that what about a coalition government? Well, I suppose that's on the table, but arguably we already have that, witnessed by the $1.7 trillion bill that was passed in the Senate, giving Mitch McConnell the opportunity to take away the Republican Party in the House of Representatives from redoing the budget of last year. And so, once again, we have Republicans chewing on each other and working at cross purposes. And that does not include the House Freedom Caucus, although they are working certainly at cross purposes with the Republican establishment. The person that's done the most damage to the Republican establishment is Mitch McConnell, not the Freedom Caucus. That's just my opinion. I thought I would just share that with you. Let's see. The federal government has not worked for the people for decades, says Poker Monkey, and that is indeed what this is all about. Indeed, the chair of the Freedom Caucus said as much as he nominated Brian Donalds for Speaker of the House before this vote. This is the Constitution live in action. It's not the first time. It has taken more than one rubber stamp vote. I love it. I believe I do too. I believe that the Republican Party has to face a reckoning. Are they going to start fighting for the actual policies that the American people want and bring them home? Are they actually going to start doing that? Are they going to do the hard work of governing? So far, the Republican Party seems very, very comfortable with the idea of simply losing. They handled themselves in loss very, very well, and that's true. But that's not what the American people needs. That's not what the American people need. What the American people need is a party that defends and protects the Constitution. How these people get away with what they do without doing that exact thing that they all swear to before they sit in those seats that we see, I have no idea. Why is it that they are able to put that aside? Again, I have no idea. Let's see what else. Trump forced the Republicans to come along as he engineered his train for 4 years, and great things were accomplished. We now need a speaker like that. I would agree. I would absolutely agree. This government needs to work to the benefit of the people of the United States, not in spite of them. Imagine President DeSantis, Speaker Jordan, and Senate Majority Leader Ted Cruz. Well, that would represent a sea change. And is that the future of the Republican Party, or is it the same old McConnell rhino? What are we going to have? Yes, we were doing very well with Donald Trump, just getting it going, and then the China virus. Yep, that's true. By the way, Max Guadiano, one of my dear friends and mentors, wants to compliment me on my suit. It's not actually a suit. People have been saying, why is John David wearing a suit? Well, because I I thought that this show required me to be more professional. And so that is what I'm attempting to do. The other reason is that I'm making this particular explanation is because I'm not wearing a suit. I'm wearing a sport coat. Coat and tie, yeah, but I'm not wearing suits yet. I have some, and you may be seeing those soon because okay, I'm running out of sport coats. By the way, if you happen to be somebody who runs a men's haberdashery and would like to sponsor the broadcast, call us at 817 379 2172. 817 379 2172. I will be more than happy to do a commercial for you after you give me enough clothes to actually do the job. Cross your fingers. Let's see. Show us your Bermuda shorts. Okay, I'm not wearing Bermuda shorts. I am wearing matching. Okay, these are tactical pants because they fit me. I really like these pants. They're True Spec 24/7s and they fit, so I wear them. But anyway, no, I'm not wearing shorts. Okay, I have one confession. I am wearing Crocs. Okay, all right. So I don't believe. I don't believe that is necessary, but okay, people are bringing this up on the chat room. And like I said, I interact with the chat room. That's what people want to say. Okay, there you go. Thanks very much, Max. I appreciate it. Let's see. Gavin says, I think you should wear a suit with shorts. Probably not. By the way, I want you certainly, Max, you're the very best. You always have been. Anyway, I'm not going to be doing this on Fridays. I'm going to go back to my polo shirts, the ones that say the Wells Report on them. I will be wearing those on Fridays. Although I have tried to do other things like fishing shirt Friday and flannel shirt Friday. I've tried to do that. But I'll be wearing, this will be a more professional looking setup. And so I'll be wearing my polo shirts on Friday, be casual Fridays, but not so much during the rest of the day. Working from home in Crocs is just fine. Thank you. They're very comfortable. I like them. I got them on mission when I was down on the border trying to defend this nation, something that the Biden administration hasn't seen fit to do. And I have essentially kept them with me everywhere I go, except on vacation. I forgot them here and I suffered greatly. All right. Take good care, Max. Have a great day. He's got to run. No problem. All right. So the vote is continuing. Let's take a look at where we are right now. 173 votes for Kevin McCarthy. 184 votes for Hakeem Jeffries, and Brian Donalds of Florida, Representative Brian Donalds, has 20 votes. So we'll see just exactly what happens, whether or not there's going to be this erosion that I've been talking about, as Kevin McCarthy is certainly suffering a bit of momentum loss, if not an outright blockage, by the House Freedom Caucus. Now, also keep something else in mind. Even Donald Trump is saying time to take the victory, time to vote for Representative Kevin McCarthy. And he's talking to the people that he helped elect to office. That's probably not something that's going to endear the former president to the Republican Party, insofar as the people that he supported strongly are now keeping Kevin McCarthy and the Republican establishment from business as usual politics in Washington, D.C. The over-under yesterday was 7 votes. A 7th vote will indeed be needed. Will there be an adjournment or will there be a 7th vote? Stick around. We'll tell you in just a moment.
call of the roll.
You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Thanks very much for being a part of our broadcast today. You can do so two ways. You can call us at 817-379-2172. There are now votes that are going to be recast or cast for the first time as some members were outside the chamber. Kevin McCarthy has 197 votes. He will likely break 200 here. Some of these votes of Republicans outside the chamber were Republicans.
Buck. McCarthy.
As you can see, there's a small booklet that the clerk
Magaziner.
is reading from.
Jeffries.
There is one more Democrat that has not yet voted, and I suspect
Miller of Ohio.
3 or 4 Republicans.
McCarthy. Cheryl. Jeffries.
Okay, that's the last vote of the Democrat caucus. Again, they are standing 4 square behind their leader, Hakeem Jeffries of New York.
Smith of Missouri. McCarthy. Sparks. Present.
Representative Sparks has voted present for the last couple of votes.
Waltz. McCarthy.
And that will do it. So that is 434 votes. And so that is the end of the vote. Now, what will end up happening is that the clerks will get together and compare their vote tallies. And once they are complete, what they will do is then report to the entire House of Representatives. Kevin McCarthy does not have the votes to become the Speaker of the House, although he has a wide majority among the Republican Party. Once again, the Freedom Caucus standing firm and strong together with 20 votes. Now, what's interesting there, when you talk about the Freedom Caucus, there is one Freedom Caucus member who is supporting Kevin McCarthy, and that's Marjorie Taylor Greene. As a matter of fact, she excoriated her Freedom Caucus colleagues and said, "What are you guys doing?" And so once again, not everybody is completely and totally in lockstep with each other in the Freedom Caucus, but as I believe the representative from Nevada, Sparks, I believe she is a member of the Freedom Caucus as well, and yet voted present. We were just discussing how President Trump has asked the Republicans to come together and vote for Kevin McCarthy. Matt Gaetz is someone who responded to the former president's plea. He said this from Fox News. Representative Matt Gaetz, the Florida Republican congressman-elect who rose to prominence under former President Donald Trump's wing, went rogue after the former president endorsed GOP leader Kevin McCarthy of California for House Speaker. Gaetz told Fox News Digital that Trump's endorsement for McCarthy for Speaker has not changed the congressman's view. He said this changes neither my view of McCarthy, nor Trump, nor my vote. He also said that he thought it was sad that the former president, had made that decision. I find it perplexing because the Republican Party has not supported Donald Trump, not in the way that any Republican Party or any Republican president could have expected at any other time in the history of the party. And so I guess Donald Trump is reasonably sure that his future lies with the Republican Party. I am not so sure. I'm not. Will he run as a third-party candidate? Probably not. But that's also something that I wish he would consider. This is the Wells Report. We'll be back with more coming up in just a moment. This is the Wells Report covering history this afternoon, as we did yesterday. The vote for Speaker of the House of Representatives for the first time in nearly a century. It has taken multiple votes, not a rubber stamp process this time around. No, what we see is we see the Republican Party fighting with itself. And it's not just for the Speaker of the House. It's for the future of the Republican Party. Many of us, former Republicans who left the party insofar as they essentially only negotiate with Democrats on their policies as opposed to fighting for their own, they have a choice to make. And if I was advising the Republican Party, what I would do is I would say the following. I would say, Mr. McCarthy, it's time to make a deal. What you need to do is you need to acquiesce to what the Freedom Caucus wants, whatever it is. And I know that that might be the tail wagging the dog, but the certain circumstances that we find here is that this impasse is not likely to change unless Kevin McCarthy decides to lead and change it. That's where it comes next, at least from a standpoint of what is happening where we see the politics. Now, from a standpoint of where we see this process, what's going to happen next? Well, a seventh vote is going to be required because the first six, at least this is unofficial, the clerks are currently poring over their records to determine whether or not they all agree, and I'm sure they will. What I suggest is that it's time to move forward with this process, and it's going to take Kevin McCarthy to show some leadership. And if that is what he does, that will certainly burnish his reputation as someone who should lead the Republican Party. But he's going to have to lead the Republican Party away from this willingness to simply work with Democrats. It's just not going to continue, at least as far as I can see. I can see no reason why the Freedom Caucus should back off 1 inch. I can see no reason why they should. And all I can say is that we're going to have to see what happens. The other thing that could happen is that someone could move for an adjournment. There were 3 votes yesterday. There have been 3 votes today, and another one likely in the offing. However, what I would do if I was advising the Republican Party is I would say, Speaker, Mr. Would-be Speaker, you need to sit down with your conference and make a deal. The clerks have finished. The House is coming to order. Let's listen.
Agree in their tallies that the total number of votes cast is 433, of which the Honorable Hakeem Jeffries of the state of New York has received 212.
Apparently, one person did not vote. There have been 434. I don't know where the 433 figure is coming from. I'll look things over and see what happened.
The Honorable Kevin McCarthy of the state of California has received 201. The Honorable Byron Donalds of the state of Florida has received 20. With 1 member as present. No member-elect having received the majority of the votes cast, a speaker has not been elected. For what purpose does the gentleman from Oklahoma rise?
I move that we adjourn until 8 o'clock this evening.
The question is on the motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it.
Oh, my.
The motion is adopted.
Is a member demanding the ayes and nays?
Is a member demanding the ayes and nays?
Okay, motion was adopted.
The motion is adopted.
Okay, so that's one of
The
those
House
famous.
stands adjourned until 8 p.m. tonight.
So that's one of those amazing votes that the House is famous for, where it seemed to me that the nays were clearly in the majority, but apparently not, and so the House stands adjourned. That was something that I thought would happen. As a matter of fact, I went to the last break, and I said, you know, what needs to happen is that Kevin McCarthy is going to have to get his conference together, and he's literally going to have to put together a deal that causes the Freedom Caucus to relent. Now, that is going to require Kevin McCarthy to cave. And will that hurt him? I don't believe so. I don't believe it would hurt his speakership at all. I don't believe it would hurt the Republican Party at all. It would force the Republican Party into the reckoning that I have been discussing for quite some time, which is they've got to determine what their future is. Are they going to operate as politics as usual in Washington, D.C.? $32 trillion in debt, an open border, all manner of things that simply have to be discussed regarding the executive branch of this nation. We have to get to that business. It has to be fixed. And is Kevin McCarthy the guy to fix it? The Freedom Caucus says no. Kevin McCarthy is going to have to figure out some way to get them to say yes. And that is simply the case that we find ourselves in at this particular moment. And so 8 o'clock tonight, they will return. And I have to believe at some level, somewhere, that indeed there's going to be a deal struck. It has to be done. And I can't imagine why there wouldn't be something done along those lines. But then again, I've been wrong twice. But I have been right about one thing that's very important. I set a pretty good over and under, didn't I? Yes, I did. Yeah. And so the over and under was 7. Okay. So I believe that they're going to be doing I believe that they're indeed going to be doing a 7th vote. And I suspect that something is going to be done behind the scenes with the Republican conference. And I suspect that by the end of this evening, we'll know who the next Speaker of the House of Representatives is going to be. That is my official assessment. I wouldn't take my one-loss record on that one too well, although the over and under. So far, the under is now exactly failed. So Mark-Sing right along, who was the guy that took the under, he says no. Gary, on the other hand, took the over. He said there would be 13 votes. We'll see. Meanwhile, me being the House, I've already won because there will be a 7th vote either way. So let's talk a little bit more about what some of these people have been saying. Let's talk a little bit about Andy Biggs. From Fox News, Andy Biggs is saying that the DC cartel must end. He tweeted ahead of a potential 4th House vote, well, that was earlier today, that he wants to break up the DC cartel as he continues to oppose the bid by House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy for the chamber's top leadership position. Quote, today we have another opportunity to break up the DC cartel and the Uniparty. This was something we've touched on this hour with regards to the fact that AOC brought up the possibility of a coalition government with Democrats having something to do with the choices made by the ruling Republican Party in the House if they can ever get anybody sworn in. The simple case of the matter is that the Uniparty is in full force, and the people of the Freedom Caucus believe that Kevin McCarthy is a part of it. The House has reconvened after failed votes for Speaker yesterday because of an opposition from the group of Republicans that I'm speaking of, the Freedom Caucus. The first 2 votes had 19 tallies toward a candidate other than McCarthy. Then Representative Byron, I've been calling him Brian, please forgive me. Representative Byron Douglas switched his decision to make the total 20 in a third vote. Biggs' comments appear to be in response to Representative Kevin Bacon, the Republican from Nevada, who referred to McCarthy's opponents as the Taliban 20. That was unfortunate. The Taliban is an evil, rotten group of people. To compare your colleagues to an evil, rotten group of people, how does that move the ball forward? What that does is causes people to dig in. And so the Republican Party is fighting for this politics as usual among the members who are politics as usual. Donald said on Fox and Friends that he switched his vote because McCarthy does not have the needed support to take the speakership. Quote, "At that point, we were basically deadlocked. It was clear he didn't have the votes," said Donalds. "So my thought is, if he doesn't have the votes, then what are we going to do as a conference? We either find someone to get 218 at a minimum, adjourn what we are doing, and get off the floor so needed negotiations can happen. That is exactly the right thing to do." President Trump, as we reported earlier today, broke his silence on the speakership votes. He said that he reiterated his support for McCarthy. Some really good conversations last night. Now it's time for all of our great Republican House members to vote for Kevin. Close the deal, take the victory, and watch. This is President Trump speaking. Close the deal, take the victory, and watch crazy Nancy Pelosi fly back home to a very broken California, the only speaker in U.S. history to have lost the House twice. Republicans do not turn a great triumph into a giant and embarrassing defeat. It's time to celebrate. You deserve it, said the 2024 presidential candidate. Now, there's something else here that I want to share with you. This is analysis from someone else, specifically a CNN commentator, Stephen Collinson. We've quoted him before. 2 years after the master of political mayhem, ex-President Donald Trump stormed out of Washington in disgrace, a little bias there. I don't suppose I need to point it out, but I will because it's bias, and that's what we do. Republicans have finally won back power. They still don't know how to properly use it. After weeks of vowing to hold President Joe Biden to account, the new GOP House majority arrived in town yesterday and promptly failed its most basic task, electing a speaker to lead it. A revolt of ultra-hardliners, hardly, in an already hardline conference, dealt humiliation to Kevin McCarthy, the California lawmaker who saw his decades-old dream of wielding the gavel dashed, at least for now. Trump, who is partly to blame for the debacle, once again, there's the use of an unfortunate and inappropriate word. If you don't know what that is, look up the word debacle. It is a disaster of epic proportions. This is hardly that. Anyway, Trump, who was partly to blame for the debacle after contributing to a smaller than expected House GOP majority, they're trying to blame President Trump for that. It's not President Trump. After his self-serving interventions in the midterm elections, the bias is so rife in this, but he does make a good point. Just sort of stick with it. Republicans don't turn a great triumph, et cetera, et cetera. Many of the rebels are among Trump's strongest supporters, and McCarthy spoke to Trump last night amid signs his support was beginning to fray. Even Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, known more for embracing conspiracy theories than state governance, complained that the party was thwarting its own goals because 19 Republicans, it's actually 20 or 21, depending on how you count the vote, decided to blow up the speaker's race. McCarthy became the first candidate to fall short on a first ballot speaker in a century. Most poignantly, the impasse means Republicans are unable to even assume the control they won in the midterms, as a new House cannot yet be sworn in. At one point, Ohio firebrand Jim Jordan, a hero of the right, stood to nominate McCarthy for Speaker. Only 19 of the rejectionists to vote that he should have had the top job that he insists he does not want. Once again, he uses the word debacle, in which McCarthy appeared to have no strategy other than to beat the head against a brick wall approach, ended with the House in an absurd limbo, something that they have indeed embraced just moments ago. Here are some conclusions that he comes up with. The GOP civil war, which erupted with the Tea Party backlash to the Obama administration, is far from burned out. It was responsible for the departures of Republican House Speakers Paul Ryan and John Boehner. and was put into overdrive by President Trump. As soon as the party had a sniff of power again, that strife burst into the open as the people he refers to as radicals seek to destroy a party establishment that has already shifted far right to appease them. So the point of all of this, and I'll get to it here after we come back from the break, the point of all of this is that Mr. Collinson believes that a lot of this difficulty is difficulty of his own creation. Okay. So we'll get to that as we continue here on the Wells Report. Once again, feel free to call 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172 will get you through to the Wells Report. Also, the chat room is firing as we continue our coverage of the chase for the Speaker of the House on the Wells Report. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Thanks very much for joining us today. The word debacle is a noun. It is a great disaster, a complete failure. And I'm trying to get this out there. A disaster, a tumult, a violent disruption as of an army. Okay, and that is what a debacle is. The people that use that word are hoping to try to turn something that is certainly not a debacle. There are not a lot of things that can happen in Washington, D.C. that would be a debacle, except the decision, say, for example, to use nuclear weapons. A debacle is a very serious thing. This is if anything, a tempest in a teapot. Now, don't get me wrong. This is not good for the Republican Party, but it's far from a debacle. What this is the Republican Party looking for its future. What this is the momentum. And yes, Donald Trump is partially responsible for it, if not completely responsible for the fact that the people of the United States turned aside the Republican Party and made him their candidate in 2016, then elected him, and then voted for him in numbers not seen by any sitting president for re-election. 74 million votes. And somehow defeated by 81 million votes by arguably the greatest presidential politician of our time, Joe Biden, at least from a standpoint of voting. I mean, the political powerhouse in the Obama-Biden administration was obviously Joe Biden. 81 million votes. Can't be wrong. And yes, Gary points out that a lot of extreme words that should not be used are certainly being used. And why are they being used? Simple. Because what is the mission of all of this is to try to create, if you will, create the feeling that this is just a horrible, terrible fiasco. Not at all. What this is representative government. It's an awful lot like free speech. A lot of people are decrying hell, if people say things, it's just terrible. Listen to what they're saying. That's hate speech. Well, that's free speech. That is free speech. No one can draw the line. You either have free speech or you do not. You either have representative government or you do not. You don't. Let's get back to Mr. Stephen Collinson's point of view, okay? McCarthy may have nothing to offer the renegades to win their vote. They disdain big committee posts. They don't dream of passing signature bills. They don't care what a majority of the GOP House wants for McCarthy. For them, it was about President Trump and the chaos. Well, once again, they're not looking for chaos. I guess they're not looking for chaos except in business as usual Washington, D.C. They certainly represent that. But chaos in the United States, the greatest example of that is the BLM riots of 2020. Because if you want to compare the two, just in numbers, then the January 6th riot was, okay, a riot, if you want to use that term, but it was nothing in comparison to the BLM riots of 2020. Nothing. As a matter of fact, I have said from this microphone that it was basically, to use the parlance of the BLM rioters, the explainers, the apologists, it was just a peaceful protest. Former Representative Jaime Herrera Beutler of Washington State, who also voted to impeach Trump, lost a primary to a rival backed by the ex-president who went on to lose the general election, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what I'm trying to figure out is what they're talking about here with regard to Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy has hurt himself. Kevin McCarthy has played both sides against the middle. Kevin McCarthy would work with rhinos when it was politically astute, and he'd work with non-rhinos when it was politically astute. And the people that are opposing him are not interested in more political astuteness. What they're interested in is actual work for the American people. That's what they say. If they have a chance to actually do it, we'll see if they're as good as their word. Being Republicans, that's not a lead pipe cinch either. The Republican Party talks a great game right up until they finally get the chance to play the game that they speak about. And they fail at that over and over and over. Perhaps, and I only say that because we don't know, perhaps the Freedom Caucus is trying to convince the Republican Party that they have erred in their ways. They certainly have. They certainly have. I mean, you start thinking about it. You start thinking about it. I mean, Donald Trump, who else would the Republicans run? They ran John McCain. Complete failure. They ran Mitt Romney. Arguably the perfect Republican candidate according to the Republican establishment, down in flames. So who else besides Donald Trump would have brought any relevance to the Republican Party at all? Yes, I voted for Donald Trump twice. Will I vote for a third time? I don't know. If he's the best candidate, I'll vote for him. But there's a long time between now and then. A long time. And a lot of people that I am very interested in have yet to speak. And I'm waiting for those words. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Thanks very much for being a part of our broadcast today. We're going to be back with hour number 3 as we continue to get to some other news. Finally. Okie doke. So there you go. Now I can do something besides politics. Yay. North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Greetings, my name is John David Wells. We report the news honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. There is commentary. That is not news. That's simply my opinion, just as valuable as yours. And so we debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate is what you find on the Wells Report every single day, Monday through Friday. So that's not every single day. It's Monday through Friday from 2 until 5, live in the Central Time Zone. There is breaking news as we start this hour. President Joe Biden said today that he plans to visit the Mexico-American border during his trip to Mexico next week. Speaking to reporters after an event in Kentucky, President Biden told reporters that it is his intention to visit the border as he makes his way to Mexico City for the North American Leaders Summit. We're working out the details now. He did not say where on the border he was going to go. There was a brief stop in El Paso by Vice President Kamala Harris, who is tasked by President Biden to do something about the Mexican border, the U.S.-Mexican border. But nothing happened. She went to El Paso and actually didn't go to the border. We're working out the details. He did not say where he was going to go on the border. We will talk about that in the back half of this hour on the Wells Report here, and we hope that you stay with us. There is, strangely enough, other news besides the choice of this heretofore not made choice for Speaker of the House of Representatives. This comes to us from Caroline Downey of National Review. Leading up to the 2020 general election, Twitter received and obliged requests from federal and state government bodies, as well as partisan officials, to remove accounts on Twitter they deemed problematic. That was from an installment of the Twitter Files. It's an expose series, courtesy of Elon Musk of Twitter, and it happened yesterday. Throughout the fall of 2020, increasingly more agencies, including the Department of State, attempted to interlope in Twitter's content moderation process, which already involved the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Absolutely awful. For example, the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence checked in on September 1st to confirm Twitter was heeding the FBI's flagging of certain accounts, according to emails obtained and analyzed by independent journalist Matt Taibbi. Twitter assured the committee in a kudos email that it would be suspending 5 accounts for, quote, platform manipulation that we can reliably attribute to Russian state actors, unquote. I'm still waiting to find out who those actors were. Anyway, we'll see. Previously released internal documents from Twitter expose that the FBI was in constant contact with the company's former trust and safety head, Yoel Roth. Between January 2020 and November of 2022, over 150 emails were exchanged between the FBI and Roth. In many instances, the FBI allegedly demanded that Twitter crack down on election misinformation. Between September and November of 2020, the Department of Treasury, the Department of Justice, the State of Connecticut, the National Security Agency, the Department of Health and Human Services, and the State Department reached out to Twitter, appearing to nudge it to take action against various individuals and actors. For example, the unit chief of the FBI Influence Task Force updated Roth in September of 2020 that the Treasury updated its list of sanctioned individuals to include Russian agents Andriy Derkach, it's actually Derkach, who the government contended was allegedly engaged in foreign interference to undermine the upcoming presidential election. An attorney from the Connecticut Secretary of State's office notified Twitter of some suspicious accounts, ostensibly Connecticut-based and attempting to look official-ish, whatever that means. A few days after the 2020 election, the Office for Democrat Representative and House Intel Committee Chief Adam Schiff asked Twitter to ban the accounts of journalist Paul Sperry and others on the grounds they circulated QAnon conspiracies on the platform. Once again, here in this nation, we do not have a ministry of truth, regardless of how hard certain political activists are trying to make that come about. The committee made several other requests, such as to suppress search results about certain members, to, quote, stop the spread of future misinformation on Twitter about certain members who are, quote, not public figures and who were not central actors in the impeachment inquiry or the 2020 presidential election, and to, quote, label and reduce the visibility of certain content. Schiff's office asked Twitter to curb alleged intimidation from QAnon promoters against aide Sean Misko. Twitter then put its foot down, rejecting many of the demands in its initial email feedback with responses like, no, this isn't feasible, and no, we don't do this, according to the documents. So at some level, Twitter was attempting to defend free speech. You have to remember something. QAnon may be a conspiracy group that speaks about heretofore absolutely unproven theories about certain proclivities of people on the American left. That being said, that's still free speech. I believe that when you try to do something about misinformation, what you're actually doing is using the word misinformation as a term of art for censorship. And that simply cannot be anything close to what we do here in the United States of America. The First Amendment of the Constitution is clear. Speaking of Adam Schiff, critics of the representative from California were outraged after reading Elon Musk and journalist Matt Taibbi's latest Twitter Files entry alleging that Schiff lobbied Twitter to suspend journalists from the platform. Published yesterday, the latest round of the Twitter Files, internal documents revealing how Twitter engaged in censorship and promoted disinformation in tandem with government agencies for the past few years, revealed that Schiff's office had asked Twitter to remove journalist Paul Sperry and others from the site. This, by the way, being reported by Fox News. Taibbi, who published the Twitter Files post by post to Twitter at the behest of Elon Musk, provided documentation showing that, quote, the Office for Democrat and House Intel Committee Chief Adam Schiff asked Twitter to ban journalist Paul Sperry, unquote. The document Taibbi shared featured correspondence between the House Permanent Select Intelligence Committee, Schiff's office, and Twitter, which included a request to suspend the many accounts, including at Greg Rubini and at Paul Sperry, which repeatedly promoted false QAnon conspiracies and harassed the aide that we were talking about. As Taibbi's documentation indicated, however, Twitter was reluctant to fulfill such a request, responding, we'll review the accounts again, but I believe this particular aide mentioned only one qualified is the only one qualified for suspension. That being said, Paul Sperry's account was indeed suspended. In response to Schiff's office demanding Twitter remove any and all content, as well as quotes, retweets, and reactions to that content concerning staff members, Twitter flat out refused. A Twitter staffer responded, quote, no, this isn't feasible. We don't do this, unquote. Sperry, an author and New York Post columnist, was later suspended from Twitter for unrelated reasons, telling conservative commentator Glenn Beck in August of 2022 it was due to tweets of his about the FBI raid on former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence. However, Sperry was reinstated to Twitter this week and immediately responded to the latest Twitter Files revelations. He claimed the real reason Schiff sought his suspension was because, at the time, Sperry was reporting on the whistleblower who exposed the phone call to Ukraine that prompted Trump's first impeachment. Last evening, Sperry wrote, quote, around the same time Schiff's office was lobbying Twitter to have me banned, Schiff's chief of staff, Patrick Boland, was making threats to my employer, that RealClearInvestigations.com, about my stories exposing Schiff's impeachment whistleblower and his ties to Schiff's staffer. In another tweet, Sperry linked his 2019 article and captioned it saying, quote, here's the real reason House Intelligence Chairman Adam Schiff secretly lobbied Twitter to have me banned. He was angry that I outed his anonymous impeachment whistleblower, unquote. Conservatives were appalled at Schiff's apparent attempts to silence Sperry on Twitter and use the platform to rip into the lawmaker. UFC champion Jake Shields felt as though Schiff should get a taste of his own medicine, tweeting, quote, I would like to request Elon Musk remove Adam Schiff from Twitter. Once again, we don't do that. The United States of America does not participate in this. Whatever Adam Schiff says is covered by the First Amendment as well, whether you find it repugnant or whether you find it right down the center line. Adam Schiff gets to speak. He does. Breitbart News Pentagon correspondent Christina Wong summed up the shocking censorship story, tweeting, quote, "Then Intel Committee Chairman Adam Schiff's office wanted Twitter to shut down one of the most effective journalists, pushing back on his phony Russia collusion narrative, a collusion narrative that has been proven false. How very anti-freedom of the press this is," unquote. The Spectator contributing editor Stephen L. Miller commented sarcastically, "Adam Schiff is just using his First Amendment rights." Well, he is. Just because he says it doesn't necessarily mean that it is gospel or anything close to gospel. It means that this is what Adam Schiff says. The people of the United States are much smarter than what these people believe, these people trying to rid us of misinformation. The people of the United States can figure this stuff out for themselves. Anything else is censorship. Journalist Adam Housley wrote, "This is disturbing. I don't care what political party you follow. This cannot be accepted. At Adam Schiff needs to answer." Yep, he does. Real Clear Investigation senior writer Mark Hemingway tweeted, quote, "Of course, Sperry's real crime was doing vital reporting exposing the mistruths about Russia collusion, a subject that Schiff lied about for years. Again, proven by press reports." Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton asked if this constituted, quote, "another reason to expel Schiff from Congress," unquote. I believe that the voters should have a say in that, if not the only say in that. Conservative actor Randy Quaid quipped, "Schiff is a piece of Schiff." That's low-hanging fruit, Randy. I'm just saying. Conservative pundit and lawyer Will Chamberlain offered a solution, tweeting, "Adam Schiff should be expelled from Congress." Wow. Jim Hansen wrote, "It's the only surprising thing here is they didn't just wipe everyone out. The sickening thing is Adam Schiff abused his office and oath to the Constitution with this malfeasance." I agree. I absolutely agree. Author Jim Hansen remarked, yes, I just gave that to you. That was the copy, and so on. So those are the big news items, except of course that now we know that what I've been saying all along is true. The deep state does include the NSA. It does include the Secret Service. And unfortunately, it also includes the Department of State. Now, don't get me wrong. The DOJ, the DHS, all of this, that's bad enough. But the Department of State has always been a shining example of what America actually is, regardless of who's running the White House. Until now. The reason that we are in a position where we are at this particular moment, in my humble opinion, is that the entire executive branch has been twisted to a political endeavor as opposed to what they should do, which is the jobs that they were appointed to and hired to do. This is the Wells Report. We'll be back with more coming up in just a moment. This is the Wells Report. Thanks very much for joining us this afternoon. Our telephone number, 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. You can join us on the chat room. Many people have. When we were discussing the breaking news that President Biden is working out details on visiting the U.S.-Mexico border, Gary says, I bet President Biden traces Kamala Harris's path. Air Force One will land in El Paso for a half an hour, and that'll be it. Well, we'll see. We'll see. The media will then spin it, the mainstream media they're talking about, will spin it that he walked miles of fence for hours staring into Mexico for a photo op. We'll see. Gary Abshire also opines that QAnon is just as nuts as Antifa. Yeah, there are a lot of nutty groups out there. They are. QAnon is, once again, they made bold assertions. They have pursued a conspiracy theory that is okay, kind of weird. And I haven't seen any proof. So as far as I know, the only news possibility there is in it is that QAnon has made these commentaries. I'm not going to say they're outlandish. I'm not going to say it's that it's a conspiracy theory so much until I see proof one way or another. Mark Greer says, hey, you should rephrase your statement to here we are not supposed to trample on the First Amendment. Yeah, the word supposed. No, at some point, at least, I mean, even now, free speech is still a part of the American lexicon. But make no mistake, this censorship through social media by executive branch agencies, by a political party which should have had nothing to do with what Twitter content would be, that speaks for itself. That is not something they can try it. And they may have been successful. They may have been successful in the run-up to the 2020 election. You're going to have to figure that out. The only thing that we have that proves the point that they were indeed interfering in the election has to do with the fact that the Hunter Biden laptop was indeed squelched. It was squelched by the mainstream media. It was squelched at the request of political parties in social media. And there are people who have said, voters, who have said that they very likely would have changed their mind had they known what was in Hunter Biden's laptop. Now, that's just the news. We don't know. Let's see. Proclivity says, Gary, doing something regularly. He really likes Googling those big words. Sorry, my family came from an English major and a journalist. And so grammar and vocabulary was kind of a mania when I was growing up in my house. And those words come out and I'm not aware that I'm using them. I suppose I could use simpler terms. But then again, the reason that we use big words is because they're more precise. So I'm stuck. Let's see what else. Anything federal is deep state. Well, certainly not. When you say that, there are three branches of government: legislative, and all of that is just what all that is. That's just pure politics. So that drops out of the solution set. The judiciary can be deep state. We have seen judge shopping by both parties, looking for people amenable in the judiciary, federal judges, etc., amenable to their political endeavor. That is not good. Let's see. What else is there? Okay, that's pretty much everything on the chat room. Let's take a look at economic news today. The Federal Reserve announced a 50 basis point interest rate increase and said expect that future rate increases will continue depending on what the economy does. The economy added 263,000 jobs. That's up from 261,000 in October. The unemployment rate in November stood at 3.7%. That's unchanged from October. Inflation remains high. The consumer price index rose 7.1% year over year in November, reflecting supply and demand imbalances. The economic indicators are up slightly, and that's the economic news. We'll be back with more coming up in just a moment. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Thanks very much for joining us today. A big news day. 7 votes taken for the speakership of the House of Representatives. No joy. The House of Representatives will reconvene at 8 p.m. tonight Eastern Time. We'll be watching and certainly report on what happens. I suspect that whatever deal is going to be necessary to elevate either Kevin McCarthy as the candidate for the Speaker of the House or someone else, I suspect that the deals are being made as we speak. So it's very likely, and I'm thinking that this is going to be the case, that I'm thinking we'll have a Speaker of the House sometime this evening. But then again, I've been wrong a lot on this. I thought that Kevin McCarthy was going to be the Speaker without a whole lot of hubbub. I was wrong. There's a whole lot of hubbub. And now all we have to do is see what it's going to take for the Freedom Caucus to get out of the way of both Kevin McCarthy and the Republican Party. Two things can happen. Either Kevin McCarthy will cave to the demands of the Freedom Caucus, or there will be a new speaker candidate that everyone can support. We'll see. By the way, we were discussing a little bit about the freedom of speech and the things that are clear violations of oath of office for one Adam Schiff and others. And I wanted to say something on this regarding the anything federal is deep state. Not true. But the executive branch is in trouble. The executive branch is in trouble. And to take part all under the pretext of trying to save the American people from election interference, to then interfere in an election, and it's everyone, NSA, DHS, CIA, it's everyone in the executive branch. In order to get that fixed, it's going to require somebody who sees the problem. I don't know that any political party, either political party, can come up with a candidate who can see it. Except, of course, Donald Trump. Donald Trump, with only one term left, would be able to remake the executive branch, something to keep in mind, just in case. By the way, Gary says, no, keep saying big words, John David. It helps me stay smart. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. It's just, it's something that it's been something that I have been known for and criticized for in years past. I use words people don't understand. That's true. I have tried to work on it. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes it doesn't. You know, those words will fall out of my mouth when I'm concentrating really, really hard on helping you understand what's going on with the news or reporting it. So that was something that I was unaware of, and I appreciate it. So all those agencies you just mentioned are a handful that are dead wood. Well, maybe. I don't think we need the DHS. I think it should be abolished. I think what we need to do is we need to fix the FBI. And I think that many of the duties that the DHS, a political organization from the get-go, immediately grasp into its sphere of influence, should be returned to where they belong, as opposed to where they are. All right, let's move on. Say what you want to about various governors, Doug Ducey, Greg Abbott, DeSantis, sending unwelcome illegal immigrants to other cities. Say what you want about it, but it apparently has worked. Fox News reports that New York City Mayor Eric Adams said that the migrant crisis in the U.S. was a real embarrassment, added that it was unfair of local governments to have to take on this national obligation. People in Texas and Arizona, Florida and California, though not many in California, have been saying that for decades. Now, the New York City mayor has just a particle of the people that are handled by Texas and New Mexico and Arizona and California and Florida. that they've had to handle just a particle of those people. Suddenly, it's a national problem, as described by the mayor of America's biggest city. Adams joined a host of local radio affiliate WABC's Sid and Friends in the Morning, Sid Rosenberg. He did that yesterday. Rosenberg asked about the status of the migrant crisis in New York. It's a real embarrassment. I believe on a national level, we must have an appropriate response. We've had conversations around the issues of migrants for decades. This is a national issue. It must have a national response. The radio host noted that Adams asked President Biden for $1 billion in emergency funding to help deal with the influx of migrants in New York City. This is a Biden issue, a Democrat issue, and now folks like you have to deal with it. To be specific and fair, that's just the truth, said Sid Rosenberg, the radio host. Texas Governor Greg Abbott has sent several buses full of migrants to New York City in the last few months. Just a particle, a few thousand. I mean, it's ridiculous. Adams said the president had an obligation to deal with the immediate concerns, but that Congress needed to act as well. When we talk about immigration, it's going to take a combination of the executive and the legislative branches. We have to address this. The New York City mayor added that no city should have to decide between providing for their citizens and dealing with, quote, an onslaught of migrants and asylum seekers. Finally, the word is getting out, courtesy of Greg Abbott, Doug Ducey, Governor DeSantis, and selected others. This has been such an interesting turn of events that even President Biden announced today that he intends to visit the Texas-Mexico border, the U.S.-Mexico border, during his trip to Mexico City next week. We're working out the details now. This from the Wall Street Journal. The president's comments came after the Wall Street Journal reported the White House was strongly considering adding a visit to the border on the Mexico trip. That, according to people familiar with the discussion, Mr. Biden, President Biden, I don't know why they said Mr. Biden. President Biden is expected to meet Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in Mexico City for the North American Leaders Summit January 9th and 10th. A trip would be Mr. Biden's first visit to the border as president. One of the people there said that there would be no new policy announcements if the event occurs. The president also said he would give a speech on the border this Thursday. The administration has faced bipartisan criticism of its handling of the border for the past 2 years. There were a record 2.2 million arrests last year from U.S. Border Patrol of people caught crossing the southern border illegally. This according to data released by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Parts of the southern border saw an influx of asylum seekers crossing the border illegally last month in anticipation what was expected to be the end of the government's use of a public health measure called Title 42, which allows the U.S. to expel migrants before they have a chance to ask for asylum. The Supreme Court, however, ordered the government to keep that pandemic-era border policy in place beyond its scheduled December expiration, while justices considered whether Republican-led states can intervene in a lawsuit over the restrictions. Some immigration advisors inside and outside the administration have been very wary of a presidential visit to the border, arguing that a photo op would legitimize GOP attacks and the Democrats should be crafting immigration messaging on their terms. Republicans have said a lack of visiting to the border shows the administration has not been focused enough on the issue. House GOP leader Kevin McCarthy told reporters that he invited the president to visit the southern border with him during a meeting in the Oval Office with President Biden and other congressional leaders after the November election. I explained to the president what I saw. The control of our border is lost right now. He said, adding that the House GOP majority planned to launch investigations into President Biden's handling of the issue. When asked about a potential visit to the region, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said repeatedly in a recent press briefing, the president's focus right now is to come up with solutions, is focused on making sure that we have the resources to manage what challenges we're seeing at the border. If congressional Republicans are serious about dealing with the challenges that we're seeing at the border, they will assist. Mr. Biden's voted, there it is again. President Biden's visit to the border follows an earlier one by Vice President Kamala Harris, who toured a Border Patrol facility and a port of entry in El Paso, Texas in June of 2021. That's new. After repeated attacks from Republicans about why she had not visited the region. Ms. Harris was tapped by Mr. Biden, President Biden, to lead diplomatic efforts to address the root cause of migration from Central America, focusing on Mexico and the three countries known as the Northern Triangle, El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala. Ms. Harris and her aides also dismissed questions about why she hadn't visited the border for weeks before eventually announcing the trip. So that's the latest. There's also something from Fox News. Very interesting. Biden or Abbott? Who's handling the border crisis better? Americans decide. This story is out of Austin, Texas. That is an enclave of blue deep in the heart of red Texas. Okay? And listen to what they had to say. People in Austin weighed in on whether Governor Greg Abbott or President Biden is handling the immigration crisis better, with most choosing the Texas Republican. I believe the Texas Governor Greg Abbott is handling immigration better. Eleanor, a Dallas resident, told Fox News. He's supporting our state by eliminating drug trafficking. Let's see what else. Lauren, visiting from Lincoln, Nebraska. I would say Abbott for sure. He's doing something about it at least. Nearly 2.8 migrants crossed the southern border illegally in fiscal 2022. More than 1 million more than the previous year. This according to U.S. Customs and Border Patrol. Abbott has taken several actions to stem the migrant surge as well as the associated fentanyl crisis, such as signing an executive order designating Mexican drug cartels as domestic terrorists for producing and smuggling fentanyl into Texas. Quote, I think Greg Abbott is handling the immigration crisis better, said Mary, also from Dallas, Texas. She praised the governor's efforts to keep the situation under control. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said yesterday President Biden has made immigration issue a priority since day one. After a Fox News correspondent, Peter Doocy, asked if the administration considers the border secure, Jean-Pierre noted that the White House has pushed immigration reform and said Republicans were staging political stunts. I've lived in a couple of border states. I do not think the border crisis is as big a deal as a lot of people are saying it is, said Mo of Austin. There you go. That's that enclave. I do believe the policies need to be updated and changed, especially with the way our world is going nowadays. One man from Brownsville, Texas, a Texas border town, was unimpressed by both Abbott and Biden's management of the illegal immigration surge. I'd say neither, he said. Okay, so that's the very latest regarding the border. So in my particular case, I have to agree with the person who said that at least Greg Abbott, the person from Nebraska, I think that Greg Abbott is at least doing something. I've been a part of what he has been doing. And I believe that anything down on the border that Greg Abbott has done has worked beautifully and will continue to do so as long as he can do it. Does there need to be an immigration situation that has been agreed on by members of Congress? Yes, there does. But that cannot mean that blanket amnesty for the now 20 or 21 million people that have come here illegally should be in play. DACA kids, for example, I understand that they were brought here by their parents. They cannot blame the people of the United States or our government for sending them back to a country that they really have no knowledge of. The persons that they need to hold responsible are their parents. But as the federal government has not held them responsible, someone has got to pay the price. Everybody living in the United States of America illegally must be given a mechanism to live here legally. I know how to do it. I've spoken about it on this broadcast. It is possible to create a scenario where all of these interests can be served, every single one of them. I know how to do it. If you want to know, stick around. I'll write the whole thing up and I'll publish it, and people can make of it what they will. But there is a way to fix this, and we better start getting it done. Let's see, what else do we have? Let's see, writing a speech to deliver at the border prior to visiting the border is Rich. He will muddle through some ill-worded catchphrases that have no bearing on any issue, then the status quo will continue. That's a little cynical, Mark, but I can see where it comes from. If Governor Abbott was not a reactionary rhino, the border would be handled a lot stronger. I don't think so. Remember, Arizona put shipping containers in holes in their fencing that President Biden said he was going to fix, and apparently did not do that. The response from the Biden administration was to immediately file a lawsuit, which they won, opening the border back up. These are things that the president is simply not going to be able to avoid. Let's see, what else? It would have been cheaper to detain them on the Mexican side. Well, Mexico has a lot of explaining to do regarding the allowance of these people to cross their frontier. This is the Wells Report. Back in a moment. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. News from Damar Hamlin. The Buffalo Bills have said that he is in critical condition, but is showing signs of improvement. He remains hospitalized in Cincinnati following a cardiac arrest based from a tackle against the game in a game against the Bengals on Monday night. I know he's still here. I know he's fighting, says Hamlin's uncle, Dorian Glenn. And I know we appreciate all the prayers and support we've been getting from people all over the country, also the world. It really means a difference for my family to see that, and it will make a difference for Damar to see that as well as he continues his recovery. He is improving, and that is something that is important. President Joe Biden told reporters today he spoke to the mother and father of injured Bills safety Damar Hamlin at length, but did not elaborate on what they discussed. Biden visited the greater Cincinnati region today for the Brent Spence Bridge project. Biden was asked whether he thought football was getting too dangerous after what happened to Hamlin. So he is at least improving. Also, actor Jeremy Renner has opened up a little bit and sending a message of gratitude following his hospitalization because of a snow vehicle accident. He's 51 years old. He's a Marvel star. He shared in his Instagram, the first since the accident on Tuesday, after he was hospitalized in critical but stable condition. Quote, "Thank you for all your kind words. I'm too messed up now to type, but I send love to you all." In the photo, Renner appears to be lying in a hospital bed wearing glasses and a tube called a nasal cannula in both of his nostrils. That feeds him oxygen. According to WebMD, a nasal cannula is used to provide supplemental oxygen therapy with someone with lower oxygen levels. The actor also has a visible scrape on the left side of his face and a couple of black eyes. By the way, he is still in intensive care and has undergone a couple of surgeries. Renner, who plays ace archer Clint Barton / Hawkeye in the superhero Avengers movies and Disney Plus series Hawkeye, suffered blunt chest trauma and orthopedic injuries in a snow vehicle accident in Reno, Nevada. This according to Renner's publicity rep. Jeremy's family would like to express their gratitude to the incredible doctors and nurses looking after him, said Truckee Meadows Fire and Rescue. Those include Truckee Meadows Fire and Rescue, Washoe County Sheriff, Reno City Mayor Hillary Sheave, and others. They are also tremendously overwhelmed and appreciative of the outpouring of love and support from the fans. The Washoe County Sheriff's Office said in a news release that Renner was the only person involved in the accident. The Sheriff's Office was still investigating. During a press conference, Sheriff Darren Balam offered further details about the tragic incident. Balam gave a series of events, saying a 911 call regarding a crash in which someone was run over by a snowcat was received at 8:55 a.m. Sunday morning. Units were dispatched minutes later. The first arrived at 9:30 a.m. after getting delayed because of weather conditions. The previous night, the area received approximately 3 feet of fresh snow. Multiple cars had been abandoned on the roads. Renner was lifted to a hospital via carrier flight at 9:56. By the way, in case you're wondering, one of Renner's neighbors was indeed a surgeon who applied a tourniquet, likely saving Renner's life. So here's what happened after towing the vehicle with his snowcat, which weighs over 14,000 pounds. Renner got out to speak with a family member. His snowcat started to roll. He added Renner was run over by the snowcat while attempting to get back in the driver's seat. The snowcat came to rest in a pile of snow. We do not believe Mr. Renner was impaired at all. Is there such a thing as drunk snowplowing? DSI? I don't think so. Anyway, they don't believe that he was impaired. We believe this was a tragic accident, said the sheriff. We don't expect any foul or don't suspect any foul play. So there you go. That is Jeremy Renner and Damar Hamlin. That's the very latest. Finally, on the Wells Report today, I have often pointed out that we in Texas really don't deal with miscreancy very, very well at all. What ends up happening is the Texans pretty much take care of themselves. And that's exactly what happened at a Waffle House. A former Austin, Texas Waffle House employee, she was fired for this, by the way, became a viral online sensation after coolly deflecting a chair that was chucked at her during a melee. This according to Fox News. Waffle House was trending on Twitter last week after a video of a female employee catching and slapping down a chair during a brawl at one of the chain's restaurants in Austin, Texas. Haley Booth, dubbed Waffle House Wendy for her quick reflexes and impressive deflection, spoke out in an interview on Tucker Carlson tonight, offering her side of what went on that night and how she was treated by the chain in the months following the incident. She was actually charged with destruction of property by the employer. And then she was blacklisted by Waffle House. just how serious an hombre, or in this case, an ombrette, do you have to be thrown out of every Waffle House in the United States? I don't think anybody needs to mess with her. Yeah. An extremely drunk, or at least intoxicated group of people were the protagonists in this. And the drunk people started getting belligerent, hollering, demanded employees take orders, etc. And then the melee ensued. It was quickly stopped. Nice going, Waffle House Wendy. This has been the Wells Report. God bless you, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Wow. Wow. Sugar shakers, chairs. And there's this wonderful thing about a woman was just beating the living hell out of a guy. Anyway, yeah, she didn't get anything except destruction of property complaints. All right. That's all we have for today. I hope you enjoyed the broadcast. Thanks very much for being a part of our show, and we'll see you again.